All righty, all righty. Counselor Paniagua. Counselor Paniagua.
Are you calling on me?
No, baby.
Oh.
Hi, great.
Alrighty, so we have the local law on the City of Syracuse to amend the July 2021, June 3rd to 2020 to 2021 city budget to reflect the salary increase pursuant to a labor agreement between the City of Syracuse and FSCME, Local 400.
Right.
Is Corey here? Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, councilors. So yes, this local law is to reflect the fact that the retroactive payments are going to reflect the budget year that's already been closed, but I did send a summary this morning with kind of the highlights of the contract, and then I'm working with budget right now just to finalize the numbers, just some tweaking that we need to do.
This was the one you had put on the agenda and you withdrew it?
No, that was CSEA. CSEA, we're still working through them on the tentative agreement. This is Local 400, so this is sanitation workers and plow drivers and all those folks. So this
the
is
one we actually discussed last time.
Yeah, it just needed to sit on the agenda for another meeting because of the local law.
Exactly. Are there any other questions for Corey?
Can I ask a quick question? Corey, so what's in the book is what is being presented. You said there's some tweaking or something?
Oh, I'm just working with budget to figure out the final cost estimate, but the agreement hasn't changed.
Okay.
So we're all set?
That's it?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, I have item 10, and I'm going to call that ready with a question mark. I will know on Monday. Counselor Caldwell.
Good afternoon. I have item 11 through 17, Commissioner.
Julie LaFave, Commissioner of Parks Recreation. Item number 11 was on the last agenda. It just, due to just an error, didn't make it on there. But if you have any additional questions about it. Item number 12, this is a request to rename a park, Sheridan Park, and change the name to Deputy Chief H.T. Lawn Park. And to justify the reasons for this request, I would like to invite a family member, Tim Lawn up.
Good afternoon, councilors. I'm Peter Lawn. I'm a 79-year-old guy who still goes by the appellation of Tommy Lawn's little brother. I grew up here in Syracuse. We still live here in the city. My brother Tom Lawn is a remarkable, unusual guy that retired from the Syracuse Fire Department after 35 years of service as a deputy chief. Just like our dad, his father did, was also the same rank and 35 years of service. Personally, to give you a little idea where I come from, I would have been a fireman too, and just by a mistake in the calendar, I wasn't able to take the exam the year I turned 21, and I ended up missing the boat and ended up as a New York State trooper instead. But they forgave me for it, and the family allowed me to come to dinner with them anyway. I've had a few interesting jobs since then. I've been Director of Traffic Safety for Onondaga County for 5 years. After that, I was with the U.S. Attorneys as a law enforcement officer for federal, state, and local law enforcement for 16 years. Then I worked for New York State Homeland Security as a Northern Border Coordinator with Canada. So our family's invested in not only in the city, but in the region and in public service. To let you know a little bit about Tommy, he was a unique guy. From the time he was almost a toddler, if you said anything to Tommy, he'd say, "I'm going to be a fireman just like my dad." And it's all he ever wanted to be. He grew up in Eastwood. We grew up on Peck Ave, adjacent to Eastwood. He lived the rest of his life on Paul Ave, also right around the block from where we grew up. Tom was a guy that, even as a young teenager, he had a bicycle with a siren that you pulled a string and it hit the rear tire, and red lights on it so that he could go to the fires when he was 12 and 13 and 14 years old. It's all he ever wanted to be. We were in the New York State Air National Guard together, and when Tom was an airman and we were sent overseas to France during the 1961 Berlin crisis, Tom was promoted to a sergeant over there and named Airman of the Year for the air base that we were stationed on. Because he was a guardsman, that was considered an extreme honor. The way he got that honor was because he was such an incredible fireman. He taught the Air Force how to do structural fires in a way that they had never been trained, and was able to implement some policies there that they had never even considered. Tom grew up, was a hardworking guy, was a paper boy in Eastwood, picked up his papers every morning. Behind the Palace Theater, there was a garage, and we delivered rugby apartments and an awful lot of Grant Village and such also. He worked at Bersani's Hardware, and he was an Eastwood guy. We went to Eastwood Baptist Church, graduated from Eastwood High School, and I mean, this is where we are, this is where we're centered. Tom received a bunch of awards during his career. Other than the Airman of the Year that he got in 1962 in France, in 1964, as he was a Syracuse fireman, he was awarded the Fireman of the Year for New York State. He's also had a couple other significant awards. The Hamilton White Brotherhood Award was given to Tom, excuse me here, where am I? In 1995. And Tom, the reason that's significant, by the way, our Chief Mons also got the same award, and that's an award for supporting the whole concept of being a fireman in a professional status and helping in the community as a fireman. Tom also was named the Eastwood Firefighter of the Year by the Eastwood American Legion back in 1980. He was a lifetime member and past president of the International Association of Firemen, Local 280, and the past president of the Onondaga Chiefs Association. Tom is a guy that had been an advocate for professional firefighting on every level, and that included bringing the volunteers together with the city firemen. Sometimes people used to draw the line between the two types of service. Tom never did. Tom was a guy that encouraged them and ended up being a president of the New York State, or the Onondaga County Chiefs Association, and helped bring a higher level of radio dispatch to the county fire at a time when it was really necessary. Tom was also a keynote speaker all over the region for local fire departments because of his amazing history. Tom could tell a story about a fire, and it was like he was narrating a video. I mean, he could tell you what hydrant he made and who got off the truck with him on what side and carried what piece of hose to what location. Tom was an amazing storyteller, and as we used to joke about it, some of them were even the truth. Tom's other hobby was antique fire apparatus. Tom was one of the national people seen as a curator for antique fire apparatus in the whole United States. Tom was known literally coast to coast for his advocacy for old-time fire trucks, even owned a few. When he was a young fireman and a young officer, he made friends down in the New York City Fire Department because he found that they were on cutting edge of new technology and new procedures and how to fight fires in a way that the rest of the world was just trying to figure out what to do. So he would take days off and go down there and ride with the fire department in New York City, and made a whole bunch of friends down there doing that, and brought many procedures back here to Syracuse, which was already a community. Okay, it was already a community that was known for its unusually forward-looking fire services. Because of his contacts with the people in New York City, when 9/11 happened, Tom lost several of his very close friends there. He was really touched by the service and the loss of these people. When the 9/11 First Responders Park was placed over at Sheridan, Tom and I became custodians of that part of the park, and we were able to help keep that going for several years. And he was the keynote speaker at the events that took place there to commemorate the loss of those 343 firefighters from New York City that died that day. So I guess when you think about what is this guy and how does it mean? He's Eastwood, he's part of our community. Tom is a guy that, I mean, we're a community of small neighborhoods, and I think that's one of the beauties of Syracuse, is the neighborhood identity. We were always from Eastwood, New York, and people used to get a laugh out of that, but that was the way we felt. We were lucky enough to grow up at a time when it had a lot of neighborhood identity. Tom is a guy, and Tom's family, and all of us identify with Eastwood and the Syracuse community with great pride. Anything that we can do to help make this happen would be much appreciated. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much. Thank you. 13, Julie.
Actually, sorry.
This is all been vetted and all that as far as.
This has the, yes, we looked up the name of the park. The park was named after a school, not a person. And we have the approval of the fire department.
Well, of course, I know.
Yes, but no, we looked up the history of the park. It's not named after a person.
And before you get started, I want to thank you for getting up and speaking about Tom. He sounded like a phenomenal person. Thank you.
And Commissioner, the outreach within Eastwood, has there been any, within the Eastwood neighborhood groups or?
I will be on, we did not conduct any engagement on this topic.
Be good.
Can you speak on it, as far as like, the board estimate that's not existent, that we'll do that prior to, when you kind of like, but there's no board estimate now.
Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. What the city clerk is referring to is some older language referencing the Board of Estimate, which existed in Syracuse up until 1989. Those powers were devolved to the council and the mayor. So as this is a piece of city property, you're acting as a trustee of the park, and you have the ability to change the name. There's no requirement to do outreach. There's no legal requirement. Sometimes it gets confused with the de-parking or selling a part of a park. That's a whole different, very much more formalized process. But this is just a name change that can be done by ordinance.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome back, Joe. Good to see you back.
Commissioner 13, please.
I'm going to have Steve Harris come up for that item.
Good afternoon, councilors. I am here to present to you and request your adoption of the Urban Forest Master Plan. We started the master plan process 3 years ago, had just completed the draft when COVID hit. Kind of took a pause for a year, but finally here we are to talk about the plan, which the primary goal is to increase canopy 7% in the city. And the places we want to do, and to acknowledge our commitment to increase canopy where it's needed most. If you look at tree canopy and you look at the neighborhoods that have low tree canopy, low tree canopy is a symptom just of redlining, just like vacant houses and vacant lots and crime and disinvestment. There's a tight correlation between canopy cover and neighborhood income. And what we want to do is increase canopy. We don't want to just increase canopy, but it's who we involve in the process of increasing canopy. Making sure the community is involved, having a robust community forestry program that includes jobs and educational experiences for youth and adults. A final part of the plan is to make sure we as a city get better working across departments to include trees as infrastructure in our overall planning. What I passed out to you today was a recent urban canopy assessment change that's happened, that looked at change from 2013 to 2019. And what we see is we've lost 1% canopy during that time. And primarily from any kind of development, whether it's new buildings or new houses. When there's some kind of land clearing activity or land use change, trees are lost. And so our master plan is about looking and knowing where those places are, why it's happening, and responding accordingly. That's all I have. I'll take any questions.
I just have one question. Looks like a great plan. Who would be responsible for the upkeep of the trees if they need to be cut back?
The forestry division, excuse me, we have an in-house crew, and we do a lot of contracting. So we contract to trim, we contract to remove, stump grind, tree planting, Onondaga Earth Corps tree plants. They prune trees. We have contractors that prune trees. So we have an active maintenance program that allows us to respond to immediate requests that come up here and now, and then to proactively prune and remove our trees. And that is an important part of our plan, to have a resilient urban forest that's also safe.
Steve?
Just a quick question on the table that you have on the
Yeah.
page 1 here, and you have the north side, and it was a -1% change
Yeah.
since 2019.
Yeah.
Does that reflect the work that you've done, for instance, the First Ward Cemetery tree planting that happened? Is that taken into account with that change, or?
That change, so you wouldn't see the impact of that planting yet, but we monitored change from 2013 to 2019.
Okay.
Because that was the most recent imagery that we had to work with, was 2019. So the federal government updates, does a flyover and monitors land use change, and we use that data, or the consultant did. Yeah.
Steve, I asked you about, you're planting 400 trees in the spring, 800 trees in the fall. Is that how it works out?
That's our goal.
Yeah, and that's going to happen for a couple of years or 1 year? Or?
Right now, through ARPA, it'll be for the next 3 years.
Yeah, and you're already, like Councilman Schultz, you already have planted trees in some, like the First Ward Cemetery.
Yeah, and that was part of that. That happened through the ARPA program.
The $2 million.
Exactly. But we use that not just for tree planting, we use that for pruning, because it's a durable asset that we want to extend the life of. And we also use it to improve site conditions in places so we can plant trees. Because they got to have, the roots have to have a place to grow. Yeah.
Steve, this is great. Thank you for putting this together.
Appreciate that.
Now, another thing that I want to know is, and you have been doing great with your team planting, and there were a moment where I had a space in my yard, and somebody showed up. I guess they were excited about the space and just planted tree in there, which I appreciate,
Yeah.
by the way.
You mean we didn't ask you?
Yeah, and he has a lot to do with it too.
Oh, yeah.
But I think one of the things that we sometimes underestimate is the power of trees and what they can do in terms of health. And I appreciate this. Now, one of the things that I have read and heard, I think you referenced it at some point in our neighborhoods, that there are diseases that are also affecting plant and trees and vegetation around here. As you plant all of these trees and other vegetation, how fast are you losing plant diseases that you are trying to replenish?
Well, the big disease that happened last year, which was tar spot and impacted Norway maple, I think most of those trees are going to be alive again. They just lost their leaves. They lost their leaves at a time where the tree will recover. But we usually know what pests are coming up, and we try and respond accordingly. So when emerald ash borer came, we looked at our inventory of ash and said these trees are on their way out anyway, and these trees we want to keep. And then we had a plan to treat, and we continue to treat every 3 years, the ash that are in good health.
So as you go forward with this plan right here, do you feel like you have enough resources to be able to do what you need to do?
Right now we do, because of that ARPA investment. One place that we have to make a concerted effort to get investment is with our nonprofit partners to do the education and workforce programs. And some of that is very strong, like the workforce activities that Onondaga Earth Corps does, But there's some education activities that we want to do, working on our schools. If we want a pipeline of people to go into environmental fields and tree care industry, which is terribly underrepresented, they first have to have a positive attitude about trees and nature. So that's where those programs would go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can businesses or residents request or refuse to have a tree in their immediate?
We still give, we still seek property owner approval, which is very labor
Tim Rudd
intensive.
didn't do that.
What's that?
Tim Rudd didn't do that.
He punked you.
Steve, let me ask you a question, and I know that you're looking at it in a different way. Because when you in these neighborhoods and you see all of these trees that was planted previously, probably in the early 60s or 70s, and they're kicking the roots or kicking up people's sidewalks.
Yep.
So these trees, they're specifically for the smaller spaces.
We do right-size trees into spaces, so I will never promise that a tree won't heave a sidewalk. And that is a trade-off that we're always going to have to live with and address.
And how would it be addressed, though?
Well, one thing is by where the spaces are narrower, planting a tree that doesn't get as big, or to, when we put it, before we put in a new sidewalk, provide space for the roots to go under so it delays or minimizes heaving. But if we were to plant and never heave a sidewalk, then we would just have a lot of streets without trees. And I think what makes it easier for a city like Rochester to address this is taking over the sidewalk management and addressing your sidewalks on a system that allows a more consistent repair process. What I would hope for is that we would be willing to go a direction in Rochester, which is live with the balance of tree sidewalk conflict and manage it in a proactive way, but don't, that's part of life. Tree roots grow and they sometimes interfere with infrastructure, and I think that the way we're going, we will be going the way of Rochester, but I'm just gonna speak for me, because when the tree busted up the sidewalk, I'm stuck repairing that sidewalk, and the sidewalks aren't cheap. That's right, and that, so when we have wider spaces, like when we have 9-foot wide tree lawns, we can plant a bigger tree, and it takes quite a while for that conflict to happen, and it doesn't always happen. And when we have a narrow space, we put a tree that is smaller and will be less likely, but I won't guarantee that it won't do it. And that is the primary reason that we continue to seek property owner approval when we plant trees. We don't want to create a mandate for something that we know will be a conflict, and we make sure people understand that.
But we under the new sidewalk program, the property owners would not pay, right?
Well, I'm not going to speak for the sidewalk program, but I think we're in a transition period with where sidewalk repairs are happening.
I think I can speak for it, that we're no longer charging people to replace their sidewalks.
Charging them annually, but not for a whole repair.
Yeah.
Neil McCarrick-Burke, are you here? Do you want to clarify?
Ann Fordock, First Deputy Commissioner. So you could still have the option if you wanted to replace your sidewalk. You could still do that on your own. But yes, the sidewalk.
Not hitting you with the bill first.
Yes, but the sidewalk program would cover that. Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I think it begs the question, Steve, do you work with our sidewalk people on a regular basis to try to like balance, like you talked about?
We do.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we should have nothing to worry about then. Because you're going to balance.
We're going to balance
Okay.
all day long.
Okay.
Really quick question. As you know, I was part of the master plan tree
Yeah.
process, which was amazing, and it had, factions from all over the city. I thought I remembered, and correct me if I'm wrong, I probably am wrong, but wasn't there a recommendation in that planning process for homeowners to be asked to plant trees on their property, like not in the right of way near the road, but,
Yes.
so can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so that would be part of our program with our nonprofit partners. Our plan, we are seeking funding, and we are currently developing a program that would include tree giveaways and education programs and training programs so that we can bring people to come get trees, to learn about how to care for them, and to make good choices about where to plant them.
So that could be in
Yeah,
replacement.
and that'll be an important part of it.
The right of way and
Yeah.
breaking sidewalks.
Yes.
So, okay.
I need full-blown evergreens. Do you have those?
You're saying you would like more evergreens to be planted?
Yes.
Yeah, in the tree lawn.
No, like at my house.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You'll be the first phone call we make when we do the tree giveaway.
On the sidewalk too, we'll throw that in. Okay.
Well, that's a first for the council.
Any other questions? Some other aspects of the, okay.
Quick
So-
question,
yeah.
What about, because I know there are folks that without sidewalk, right? What about planting trees that branch into driveways, and what happened then? I guess that's owner responsibility.
You know, that has always been considered an act of God when roots grow into, I mean, we don't remove a healthy tree when it causes a conflict unless repair of infrastructure is going to happen, and we assess that repair of infrastructure will require us to remove the tree. So the place this ends up being the most painful is with sewer conflicts. But think of the burden that would put on the city if we honored a request to remove every tree that caused every root that would cripple the city in terms of its operations. So we just try and be consistent. So you will probably hear me talking again when some other agenda items come up. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie, item 14.
Item number 14 is we have two previously allocated capital accounts with small balances in them, 46,000 in one account, 9,000 in another. We no longer have projects that fall within those ordinances, so we would like to take those amounts, put them into a most recent court improvement account so that we can do one or two more projects with it.
Questions? Item 15.
Item number 15 is a request to allocate ARPA funds in the amount of $550,000 to convert, as a start, 5 of our city pools to saltwater sanitizing systems. I see,
Question.
yes.
So is there a plan to convert all? You just said start, so
Yes.
there's a plan to do all of them?
Yes.
And why were these particular pools chosen?
So we'd like to start both with the indoors because the chlorine needs are different there because you're not in an open air environment. So we want to do those. They also are lesser priced. Burnett, because it just went through this fabulous renovation, so we felt that was good. It's also one of our largest pools. Thornton's one of our largest pools, so we thought we'd start with the big end, and then if dollars allow, we'll go with Kirk because that one is one we have a lot of issues with the chlorine.
Okay, last question. How's the chlorine shortage looking this year? Is it all caught up now?
So this request is based on, if the idea of the ARPA funds is to bounce back from the pandemic issues, this falls right within the guidelines of that. Last year we had a number of issues getting chlorine. To no fault of our chlorine supplier, they were great, but they have a driver shortage. I spoke to them directly and it is not better, it is worse. So in addition to the transfer of chlorine is dangerous, it requires a hazardous materials certification. We depend on it. People always ask why we don't buy chlorine in May for the entire season. You cannot do that. Chlorine begins to break down in 2 weeks, so we have to have a constant supply. When I spoke to the person who would be delivering this summer, we might have a 5-day window where we're not getting chlorine. However, if they get chlorine, we're not going to be first in line. Public water system, public safety is going to get it first. Plus, if they deliver chlorine and our pool has been closed for 5 days, we have to use all that chlorine to shock the system back. Therefore, we're probably out of chlorine again. So salt, in addition to being safer, it's better. It's better for the skin. It's better and easier for our staff to manage and handle. We felt this was hopefully what you consider to be a proper request for ARPA funds to start getting these pools converted.
Totally agree with that.
Yes, and when the salt comes, there's an initial investment of the salt, but then you're using very little, and like you said, we can buy it all at once. We can buy it at the beginning of the season, and we are good for the season.
So just so I'm clear, that you do expect a chlorine shortage again this season in pools?
It's not a chlorine shortage, it's delivery shortage. It was a chlorine shortage for people's pools, residential pools. For us, it's a delivery.
Okay, I heard the chlorine shortage, not that it matters, but it started because there was a fire in Louisiana just before the pandemic. So all the supplies were used up, and then they had to get back online this last year. So again, my question, does Schiller Park, do you anticipate that will be closed again because the chlorine supply is inaccessible, or driver problem, or whatever it is?
So what we found last year is if we had 6 pools that were short on chlorine and the driver was about to max out on their hours, they would have to go to, we didn't get to pick which pools they went to. They went to just whichever ones they went to. And then, so I can't say specifically whether Schiller will be impacted or not. We're gonna try to do this, and it kind of comes with the waiver. We want to hit the ground running. We're trying to get these converted very quickly so that these are 2 less pools. Again, our largest pools.
Totally get it separate,
Yeah. But if we get our largest pools that would require the most amount of chlorine, then we can go to the smaller pools and hopefully get chlorine delivered there.
Are there any health benefits?
Yes.
To go from chlorine to salt?
It's much better. So for our staff purposes, just breathing in chlorine is not healthy. It's better. It's softer on the skin. I'm not a doctor. I can provide the notes if you'd like. But no, it's better. It's more environmentally friendly. It's a positive. We see it in many ways.
Is this common? Do a lot of other cities do this?
Yes, it's becoming more and more common. If you go to large water parks now, it's like salt water. If you go underwater, you can kind of taste it or just feel the salt, but it is becoming more and more common.
Plus, we can make jokes about being the Salt City now.
Correct, exactly. I didn't even,
Speaking of jokes, if the DPW runs out of salt for snow, can they come to parks?
No, they are not touching it. So, not that I'm pushing along, but that then, like I said, goes to number 16, because that's the company, if you approve number 15, we would like to hit the ground running, and we've spoken with this company that if we get the approvals quick enough, that we may have a chance of getting those 2 outdoor pools before we open for the season. And then Kirk will be quickly after it, and we'll work on the indoor pools during the summer, so that way, when they open back up again in the fall. And so we don't like to do this last minute, but the most recent phone call with our chlorine distributor sort of made us act quickly.
So Commissioner, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just one question. Did you talk about the time frame of converting?
So I believe it's 2 weeks or so. This is Tyler from the pools. He's been doing the majority of the conversing with the company.
Hi. Yes, so through talking with them, they can have products here the first week of June, and then the following week they can be installed, and hopefully by the end of that second week. So I think it's before June 20th, it should all be completed, and we can turn the pools on, fill them, and have them running on salt. So it's right before we go to open to the public. So it's like a boom. It's the best way I got for it.
And the idea is that if these are successful, if they work out well, then we would like in the capital plan moving forward to convert all of our pools.
Okay. Then with that, Commissioner, does this mean that in terms of cost, is this a better option going from chlorine to salt?
We will have a savings in chlorine. We will still have to have a small chlorine on hand as a backup. That's a requirement, but we will not be purchasing chlorine. We won't be having to pay for the delivery of it, so there will be a cost savings there.
Okay, so annually, what do we spend on chlorine and?
I have my budget book. I can look to see what.
It's like $36,000.
Yeah, I thought it was about $36,000 annually is what we spend on chlorine.
Okay, so the 550,000 is what? So per pool?
No, that's annually for all chlorine.
36,000. Okay, for all pools.
And yes, for our 10 pools. So we are asking to put out, but we think you put a value on chlorine, or do you put a value on when we have to close the pools in the hottest week of July, which almost happened quite a few times last year.
So why don't you just ask for all 11 pools to be converted instead of doing this?
I wasn't confident that we could do them all within this timeline, so I wanted to see, honestly, if things go well and the administration and the council feels well, if by mid-June we have them all ready to go, sure, I'm not gonna say no.
Can I come swim first to see how it?
Sure.
Julie, let me ask you this question, right? Because I'm always the one that has a problem without the competitive bid.
Yes.
So I get it with this company. So do you plan to RFP this product the next go round?
Yes, now that we have timing, yes, I absolutely would like to do that, go through the process. I would like to state, though, that right now, we've been researching this for at least a year. We didn't just start to research this. When chlorine delivery became an issue and chlorine shortage before that became an issue, we started to research this. This was the only company that services the size pools that we could find. There's other companies out there, but this was the only one that services and makes equipment for the size of our pools. I mean, Burnett and Thornton are, I don't know if it's officially Olympic size or whatever size, but they're huge. They also come with a monitoring system that we haven't seen from many of the other companies as well. So that's I don't want to state that right now it's just a timing issue. It is timing, but we feel confident in this company. That said, yes, we will go through the RFP process the next time.
Other questions? 17, please.
17, this one is a timing thing. This is a company that we already work with in another capacity, but we have had we've discovered some issues with some of our fountains that if this work isn't done, we will not be able to open them this season.
And so all of these competitive bids next season will be caught up and we'll be able to put them out?
Yes.
Okay. Because to me, that limits companies that has an opportunity to do business.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Green.
Thank you, Madam President. Item 18 is the estimate for the city and school district budget. There'll be a public hearing on May 2nd at 5:30. Item 19, this is fixing a typo. Jake called me last night, so I think he's not here, but it's a fix of a typo for something that we previously passed. So I don't think there's probably any questions on that one. Item 20 is the license agreement, the Syracuse Urban Food Forest Project. Is there anyone here to discuss that one?
Matt Oja, Commissioner of Assessment. Yeah, we are requesting adoption of this. This is 13 properties in 2 neighborhoods in the city. There's an ESF Syracuse University partnership that's looking to encourage the interaction with edible plants around the city. Steve and Kimon can speak a little better to this than I am, but we're essentially seeking to get them permission to enter onto city property, plant a number of trees and shrubs during a short period early next month.
Just to expand on that, you may see a list of parcels where they're going to do this. 400 to 424 Hudson, 501 to 515 Rich Street. Those locations are all right on the creek walk and are the 400 block of Hudson is that new section of creek walk between Rich and Hudson. It's kind of a knob of green space where the creek walk goes through and eventually dumps out on the South Ave. So that is de facto parkland. I don't know if that's officially called parkland yet, but that's where the creek walk goes, and that would be the focus of their activities there. Then at 501 and 515 Rich, that's right across the street, right by the Rich Street Bridge. Those lots are adjacent to the creek. I think a structure is still on one of them and the other is a vacant lot. The idea is that we would address the derelict look of that vacant lot, which is just stuff growing wherever in a way that we don't like to look at, and to clean that out and then provide an opportunity to plant in a planned way the trees and shrubs, which will be edible.
Tim, don't go. You're the next one up. Sorry.
But how are people to know, as you're planting all of these edible trees, how do people know that these are edible plants?
That is probably the most important question and the most common question, which is through signage and education. So I don't know the exact plans for how they're going to deliver that, but I know that's part of it, is that, you know, we see this as an extension of, this is a way to increase canopy. We know that 10 billion people are going to be on the planet at the end of this century, and it's probably going to be more crowded in Syracuse, and we're trying to get forageable edibles here, and we want people to know what they are.
Yeah, I can also add to that. So I've been working with the Syracuse Urban Food Forest Project Group for about a year.
Introduce yourself, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm Kimone. I work in neighborhood and business development as a city planner for the South Side. So I've been working with this team for over a year. We've provided them with a few letters of support for grants that they've applied to. Yeah, with this project, they're hoping to plant fruit trees on vacant lots, but they've been doing a lot of community engagement beforehand and before they applied for the grants. So they've connected with business owners that want to take some of the products they forage and sell them, put them into natural home remedies and like skincare remedies. So they've been doing their community engagement. They've also planned a lot of like foraging with me or walkthroughs. So they might go and forage and then have a virtual live feed set up where they're showing people what they're picking, what it can be used for, and then they might also do a cooking kitchen demo. So they might show, okay, this can be used in this recipe, this is how you prepare it, how you store it. So they've done a lot of community engagement.
You answered my second question, thank you.
Yeah, quick question about that. Maybe you said this in my understanding, but currently there's not an ordinance that says it's agreeable to or illegal to pick forageable items, right? Like apple trees and pear trees that are planted on city property, people can't go and
Yes,
pick them.
if you read
It's
the
illegal.
language, I read that language to say you can't, the intent of that language is don't go vandalizing a tree. That's, or a shrub. Don't go mangling it. I don't think it is so directly says you can't, it's in the property conservation code. I'll have to refresh my memory, but there is some language that needs to be addressed, yes.
Right, and so, I don't know, maybe the urban forest folks have the right to manage and maintain them, so it's okay to pick as long as they're responsible for them, maybe?
We want to address that language in a future council meeting and come to you to talk about
Okay,
that. Yeah.
Sounds,
That's part of the plan, and ESF and SU are going to help us with that.
okay.
And Steve, with, I see here there's about 5 of them that are going to be in my district.
Yes, so the ones on Elmwood, 108 and 110, 133 and 135, those are like entryways into Elmwood Park. Those are de facto Elmwood Park. And then we understand about 601, 603 Craddock, that there's some potential acquisition that might happen there. And we're going to stay sensitive to that and plan that last, or wait, or not do anything there until we know what's going to happen with that lot.
All right, is there going to be a direct conversation with folks that are like close, they're saying that this is what we are doing so that they don't just,
Yeah, most definitely. There'll be community engagement and outreach to all the residents that live in that area.
okay, thank you.
Do you guys go to the TNTs and neighborhood watches and talk about this?
No, not yet, but it's on our agenda.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions on this item? Thank you.
But Councilor Green, number 19, I did have a question about. Can we go back for 1 minute?
Sure.
Okay, so it says that the clerical error has been amended with this, but I'm still unclear what the final wording is. It the short title, or is it the legislation? Because this mentions Division of Code Enforcement, remaining balance charge 2, and the legislation says that it's IT. Okay.
Yeah, it's the
So
legislation.
disregard this and just refer to this. Okay.
Okay. 21, Director Rudd. So this is a local law authorizing the city to exceed the tax cap. So walk us through the legal requirement for this, and then the state penalty, and
Well, the legal requirement, Joe Barry, do you want to address, or? I mean, in general, I think the high level is that the property tax levy is limited to 2% growth, or a rate lower than 2% if inflation is low. Inflation is high now, so it is full 2%. And if a community wishes to collect more than 2% more than the previous year in their total city school levy, then they need to override the tax cap with a 2/3 majority of the legislature. So this is us, our budget, our proposed budget for fiscal year '23. It keeps the tax rate the same, but because taxable assessed value went up in the city by 3.1%, we end up collecting 3.1% more when we keep the rates the same. As a result, we blow the cap. So this is us seeking permission to exceed the cap.
And so, one thing to clarify, passing this doesn't obligate us to then exceed the cap. The council subsequently came back and decided we wanted to reduce the increase. We could still choose to do that.
Right, I think you still choose to do that when you approve the budget. You would still have the ability. Does that?
In
yes.
theory, we could. And then the other thing to know is that in past years, this was tied to citizens' inability or property owners' inability to get the STAR rebate. And under the current state budget, that is no longer accurate, right? So there would not be an official penalty associated with exceeding the tax cap.
Right. So there is no penalty. There will be nobody who's not given a check because we've exceeded this cap. The way the previous law was ended, and now the new law in the proposed budget is not tied to the property tax cap.
Any other questions on this item? Okay.
Well, that's if we don't get them to approve it, right? So there is a whole procedure. If you didn't give us permission, what would happen? But if we're okay doing it, then I would rather not delve into that hole. But if you want to talk about what would happen if we didn't authorize this, we can.
Councilor Paniagua.
Good afternoon again. I have item number 22. Again, to approve the labor agreement between the City of Syracuse and Local 400. It continues to be in our agenda to do process. It needs to sit in the agenda between presentation and adoption, and here we are. It will be ready, yeah. So are there any further questions on this from anyone? All right, we should be okay then.
Thank you. Councilor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 23 and 24. 23, I have Mr. Kearney here regarding, we're going to be the use of 425 Solar Street for planning.
That's correct. Owen Kearney with the city's planning division. The request before you on number 23 is authorization to enter into an agreement with CORE to use the Freight House building for a public meeting on May 4th. That public meeting is focused on the planning work we're doing in the lakefront. The building's well situated. It's an iconic building in the area. It's well suited to what we're doing. It really looks out onto the inner harbor. We've done a walkthrough with them. There's no cost to the city, but they have asked us to execute an agreement, and that agreement must be authorized by this body before the city does so.
Great idea using this.
It says April 26th in the...
We will update that. There is a conflict. New York State's having a regional climate action meeting, and so we are working with them and have moved our meeting out a week to May 4th, which we're in the process of updating all the places we need to update, and we will make sure that the letter is also updated. Thank you.
And item 24, thanks, Owen. And item 24, that's ready. I appreciate all the counselors and their input. Thank you, President Hudson.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Majok.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 25 through 29. Chief Cecil, I think majority of these are yours.
Hi, Joe Cecil, First Deputy Chief, Syracuse Police Department. Number 25 is Global Perspective Consulting. This is Dr. Strauss, which we just talked about yesterday. He was in last year to do cultural diversity for the entire police department. We'd like to bring him in again this fall to do the civilians we recently hired that didn't go through it, but also during that overlap of those two academies that we're going to have, that overlap of almost 2 months, we want to use Dr. Strauss to do his cultural diversity for 2 academies while they're in place.
How does, when Dr. Strauss does this, Chief, does his approach include maybe local people? Does he, collaborate with local people that may do this kind of work, or does he just do it himself?
Sure, he does just do it himself. He comes in from Utah, I believe. This was someone that Chief Buckner was very familiar with, so we brought him in. And now that I've gone through the training, I have to tell you, he's very good. He was very receptive. The police officers all were very receptive to this type of thing, and the way he presented it, his education, his background, and everything. So, personally, I think he's a great fit. I'd like to see more of it, but he is not, as you mentioned, not local at all.
Okay.
But I'll just add, the last time he was in, he did reach out to many local people to get perspective about Syracuse and get some background and history about Syracuse.
Because I'm asking that because when we did this the first time, I had a couple of, I think, not couple, I had specifically one community member that had reached out to me and said, Counselor, we are familiar with our community. We can do this kind of work. Why are we contracting out this type of stuff? And I'm wondering if that is something that was explored to kind of see the local folks to see if they could do the same thing locally here. And I know that I've spoke with Dr. Strauss, and I respect his expertise, but there are people here that may be able to do that. Have we exhausted that to really, because that was the same question we had last time when we approved this. Have we engaged our local stakeholders, people who are able to do this?
The answer is no. We have not. We have not put it out for like an RFP or engaged others to do it. No.
Okay. Anybody reached out of looking at this? I know it's not a lot of money, but I think every dollar with every dollar count, considering the nature and the status of our community. And if we can invest here with people with similar skill who can do the same job, same way, why not invest here?
No, our approach to this is because Chief Buckner had experience with him. It was our first step into this area with training the police department to use him. When I talked to him, I found him to be on his game and understanding completely. He was very balanced in how he approaches this conversation. While he's training police, he is not, totally, one side or the other. He was very balanced. I do see, for consistency's sake, because we're doing probably consistently the most classes that we're doing back to back. We got all of the rank and file in through the training, and now we're trying to get the recruits who are coming in with them. I do see the benefit of the consistency, but I do have to apologize that we did not follow up on the questions before.
Okay, great. Counselor?
And that's, cultural competence is a very general term, so that then would always also depend on what aspect of cultural competency are we talking about. So do we have a scope of what he will be teaching?
Yeah, he provided
Sure.
that.
He did. We can provide that. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So he had a curriculum. Yep.
Chief, just one question. Has there been a cultural competence training before this?
Years and years ago. I can remember it back in the 90s. Yep.
Okay, other questions? Okay, move on, Chief.
Sure. I apologize for number 26. I do not know what this is. I know it's under you, Councilor Majoke. It says on behalf of the Bureau of Information Technology. I have no idea. I can get back to you on Monday. I know a lot of these were put on by Janet.
Yeah,
I
Janet's
don't know what
not
it is.
here?
She's out of, sorry.
Read it. It was more information, IT, and it probably would have went under Michael, but Janet's not here either way it goes, so, but,
You're trying to throw me
I
a,
mean, there's no local match or anything, so it seemed like a good thing, but yeah, could you clarify that for us? And
you bet. Yep.
historically, we always put the Homeland Security up under you, so it will follow up under you. So
Okay.
just do it.
Okay. But anybody with specific questions on this, though? All right.
Okay, yep. So number 27 is another Homeland Security grant. It's for $100,000. There's no match. It's for the bomb squad for various equipments. The highlight of the equipment would be there's They want to purchase a new robot where they can get further away from it. They don't have to be so close to it as they're operating it. Also some x-ray equipment and some other stuff, that kind of technical stuff, but it all has to do with the bomb squad. Some of it is actually training as well.
Now, with that, Chief, it goes back to the conversation we had yesterday, how, we apply for all these grants, we get them, and then certain years they run out. And then now we gotta figure out what to do with the equipment or the service that we have obtained. Is there a way you can show us, maybe, after we apply, we get it, what would be the cost to potentially maintain it, to hopefully plan and allocate resources, or at least expect what's coming once we don't get the funding?
For some things, it's very easy, like body cams, tasers, all that equipment, very easy. They have a schedule that goes out. It's a 5-year contract. I can very easily show you what we're going to owe when ARPA runs out and things like that. I know you have a public safety meeting in May, discusses some of those budget things. Do you want us to throw that one on there?
Please, that would be great.
Okay.
That would be great, yeah.
We can do that.
That'd be great.
Chief, also, one question regarding that. With the current equipment that you have with the bomb squad and other things that you mentioned, do other cities and or towns, do they call on you guys to go out there and help out, or is there?
Yep, they do, Counselor, without a doubt. Anytime anyone in Central New York has a major incident, including something like this, we are called and we help them out.
Are they billed for that, or?
It's been a mutual aid type thing. However, we have discussed it in the past because various things occurred with one agency. So it's been discussed about whether we should get financial benefit for it. In the past, it's all been just mutual aid is what we call it, to help them out. But it has been discussed, the financial part of it.
Okay.
Chief, is our last robot dead?
What's that?
Is our last robot dead?
No, is he dead? Is that what you said? No, he's still around. We actually have 2 of them. One of them's larger and one of them smaller to go in different areas. But this one, again, they can operate it. It's much more sophisticated, and they can operate it from further away from the scene. But
So we have, this would make 3.
Yeah, it'll be 3. But you have to remember that because of technology, I've seen some of these robots, probably you have when you go to those neighborhood watch things where they display them. That technology inside those robots breaks down within 2-3 years. So it always either has to be you always have to try to repair it. And then you know how technology is. They try to tell you, we don't have the parts for that one anymore. You need to get this one. So we may have 3 when we get this.
But they're still operable to a degree, right?
Yes, they are still operable, correct.
Okay, because I remember when you used it up there by Henniger and you sent the robot in. I remember that incident.
Okay. Anything else on 27? Nope.
All right, keep going, Chief.
Okay, so 28, another Homeland Security grant for $75,000. This one has no match. It's going to be for, hold on a second. I'm getting thrown I'm sorry. It's for a lot of SWAT-related things, pole cameras, updated monitor and vision enhancements, uniforms. It all has to do with call-outs for SWAT, also counter-terrorism missions and things like that. Again, no match is required for this.
Questions? Keep going, Chief.
I think that's the last one. Yeah, I think that's, I have a 29 on here, but I don't, I think that's myself and the fire department. The fire department left on me.
You're gonna take it?
I can, well, yeah, because it's pretty simple. So the fire department's using this $50,000 from Homeland Security again, no matching grant. They're going to purchase portable radios, I believe 7 of them, to use on major events. And we're purchasing more barricades to use when we have these major events occur in our city, just for safety. Additional barricades for that, for public events, large public events.
Well, Chief, mine is not here to say his part. Just ask him to buy you some donuts, will you? Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Chief.
Yep, thank you.
Thanks, Counselor. Counselor Allen.
Thank you. I have items 30 through 53. Michelle, you're speaking on the UNSAC as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Afternoon, councilors. Michelle Spansky, Deputy Commissioner of Neighborhood Development with the Neighborhood and Business Development. Item number 30 is to appropriate funds for the 2021-22 UNSAC allocation for the 2-year period, or I guess for the last 2-year fiscal period, for the total amount of $750,000. This is the second year of the total 5-year agreement. This process was kind of designed in such a way so that programs or organizations that had run programming during the last fiscal year had an application process where they were able to apply to receive reimbursements for those funds. And then there was an additional process that would enable them to receive funding for this upcoming fiscal year. There's a very robust community engagement process on the part of the allocation committee. Councilor Allen and Councilor Driscoll both participated, as well as our South and East Side community ambassadors, and then a couple other resident designees. They put a lot of thought into how those allocations were broken out. We really appreciate the support that they provided to that end. The other thing that I would note here is that there will be a public meeting held based on the recommendations for tomorrow at 5:30 in the council chambers.
Okay.
Any questions?
No.
So I do have a question. Was this, so they got their money when the SU agreement was approved earlier this year. They were paid for last year's amount, right? The 375 is what they got?
I'm going to defer to our Director of Grants Administration, Elizabeth Gannon, because she's largely been quarterbacking this. So.
Hi, Elizabeth Wenger Gannon, NBD. Can you repeat your question?
So the SU agreement is what funds this?
Correct.
So the fiscal year started last year and it goes until next year. So did they receive that money earlier this year that started that contract?
Actually, it's for 2 separate fiscal years, and so we received $350,000 twice, if you will.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
So 350 twice is 700. This is for 750.
Sorry, 375, my correction.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's fine. Sure. Thanks.
So if I'm not mistaken, they will come back in front of the council for the 2022, right?
After the July 1st.
Right.
For the last year.
For the last year.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
For the last year, you all will come back in front of the council for the last year.
I'm not sure what you're asking. Are you asking about reimbursements, or are you asking about the grants?
Explain the process, just of this appropriation here, so they can understand it.
Sure.
Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. So, as noted, this is tied into the 5-year SU agreement, and the funds are distributed based upon the advisory committee and allocated. And as part of the annual budget process, it's included. So there's an appropriation now to get us up to date from last year, which I think Councilor Schultz was referring to. And this looks ahead to the next SU payment, which I believe is around July 1st. And there'll be another, NBD will come in to get their annual appropriation for the fiscal 22-23 UNSAC agreements at that time.
That makes sense. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you. For the 31 through 53, can you go in order of our books, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So starting with item 31, 258-60 Crescent Ave, and then item 32, 118-20 McClure Ave. Both of these were properties that were held from the previous council agenda. There has not been any additional updates since we last discussed these properties.
Okay, I'll reach out to them again, because the son was gonna get in contact with you or Patty. So I'll try to contact them again today, but if we don't hear from them by Monday, then we can move forward. Yeah, did you hear from him?
Yeah, he has not responded. I sent him a text message and he did not reply.
Okay. Okay, I'll talk to you afterwards, so. Okay. Thank you.
Item 33, 116 Avondale Place, located in District 4. It owes approximately $20,000. Item 34, 918 Ballantyne Road.
Hold on one second. Can you go back to, so 33, I put a question mark on here. Brent called and said the house is up for sale. States that once the sale was completed, blah, blah, blah. So do you know how long it's been up for sale?
I am not
sure.
positive. I can
Okay.
find out.
Okay.
If it's up for sale, and they're trying to do due diligence to sell it and pay the taxes, then I would think that we would give them time for that.
Certainly, that's up to the council's discretion. As always with these properties, if the property were to move and the property were to sell in between now and the time that the closing takes place, they're able to redeem at any point throughout that process. I would note that this is a property that has been before the council, that has been included in a previous phase for delinquency issues.
Yeah, and you just gotta, even if they sell it, they may not come back in. So we'll see. I'll try to reach out to them too.
Well, if they sell it, we don't automatically get our taxes.
No.
It doesn't work that way?
So if taxes remain with the property, say the property sells, the taxes are unpaid immediately after that, the taxes do transfer with the property to the new owner, unless that's separately negotiated within the sales agreement.
So we've had some before where people come in, they don't know they owe
Right.
taxes. They bought a house and then they find out they owe 10 grand or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of on them to do their due diligence. Like if you're buying a property, you should look to see if there's taxes owed, but we know some people, they don't know to look for it either. So.
Okay. Go ahead.
How long could a property be for sale and they owe taxes? You know, like what's to prevent the next owner from being held with the taxes of a new property that they purchased that they may not know about?
If I'm,
What is it?
I was saying that happens all the time. I'm sorry, Veronica Voss, First Deputy Commissioner of Finance. I run the City Payment Center. We get people in all the time saying that they bought a property, they weren't aware of the taxes. This is why you should have a lawyer do your closing, and they automatically will do a tax search. We do those for a $30 fee, or a $60 fee for twice as long for 20 years. So, that's really important, and I think education is really important. I know that in the Financial Empowerment Center, they help educate people, but we've got people who have already bought properties and are in an unenviable position of finding out that they have thousands of dollars of tax bills, and that's what we work with the tax trust, trying to help them with that.
All right, thank you.
I'm almost curious, like, could we, if a person sells a house, could the city get involved legally and get the person for the amount that they sold for that they owe us?
I don't know, you got extra Berry.
Joe, is that-
Corporation Counsel question.
Joe, you see how bad we need you?
Good afternoon again. So, if I understand the question, I think it's, someone has delinquent taxes, they sell the property, they go off their merry way. Do we pursue them for collections or?
Right.
And the answer is no, we really cannot. Our remedy is based on the property. So our remedy is to follow the tax foreclosure process. And we don't, the fact that someone puts a house up for sale doesn't stop that process. We can go ahead and enforce our tax lien regardless of whether or not it's for sale.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
have another question, because it's gonna apply to all these other ones. When we make those phone calls to tell people, you know, the taxes are behind, some didn't know, some didn't know, did we give them a date and let them know they're up?
Yeah, so this particular round of outreach that Patty Lynch in our office has been doing, this is a kind of additional courtesy round that is going out to owner occupants. She has been apprising those owners of the date that the properties would be appearing on the council agendas, and then communicating that they should reach out to the Department of Finance to put in place any, if a tax trust is an option, for them to pursue that as expediently as possible. They're also advised that just kind of the general process, which is that even if the council approves the property, they are able to redeem up until any point when the closing takes place, which is at minimum about 3 months.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I believe we were at item 34, 918 Ballantyne Road in District 3. Owes approximately $11,000. Item 35, 1807 Bellevue Ave, District 3.
Give me a second. Now that 11,000, how long was that occurred?
That's roughly 5 years.
5 years, okay.
Item 35, 1807 Bellevue Ave, District 3, approximately $20,000. Item 36, 424 Bishop Ave, District 3, $12,000. Item 30.
Excuse me, going a little fast, So, on these comments here, when you said, like you called, you left, you didn't get attempted phone call, no answer, left messages, there were letters and everything sent out too, right?
Correct.
There were previous letters sent out to these people. Okay, just want to know, because it just says phone call attempted, no message. Okay.
And this one, they live in Brooklyn.
Yep.
And also, Counselor, the thing I first time I saw this, I was kind of concerned as well. A lot of these people know they owe this much.
There have been,
and they
yeah, so multiple rounds of noticing has gone out for all of the properties that are on this agenda and that will be going forth on any of the next subsequent agendas. Notices went out in November of 2019, and then there was an additional round shortly after that.
So to assume somebody owed this much and they decide to keep their house, what are some of the, beside tax trust, is there any other way that they can be helped to get their house?
The tax trust is the primary mechanism that is available kind of within the city to help facilitate that. Owners certainly have the option, if they're able to make it work financially, to seek any type of loan financing to potentially pay off the taxes. Sometimes we see situations where, particularly for rental property owners, where they may end up just selling off the property to redeem the taxes. But the tax trust is the main mechanism that we have within the city.
And I mean, COVID is now going to close to 3 years, you know, and I'm not clear on this with the resources, Deputy Mayor, that we had offered to people to alleviate stress, property taxes and other financial stress. Has there been any stipulation in that part that was dedicated to stuff like this? Assume somebody's going through struggle with.
So none of these, there were mechanisms available in terms of the property owner had the ability to enter or apply for a COVID hardship declaration or an economic hardship declaration. None of these properties that appear on this agenda pursued that.
Okay.
And I will make a note in any cases, we check all of that before we put them on the list. And so if they were to have applied, I would indicate that on the sheet.
So assume with the one on 34 Ballantyne, which is $11,000, would that, if they would have applied, would that have changed the course of the property going to land bank at all? Because $11,000, 2 years of that is probably not going to reduce it much. Would have that changed anything at all?
So not necessarily, if I understand your question correctly, but I would reiterate what we discussed at the most recent council meeting, that all of this has been, these are taxes that have existed even pre-COVID. So the delinquencies have been available for 2 years, essentially, and then COVID happened. That was just the point in time at which we started the phase.
And also, Counselor, and you all know this, just to remind, these are over the course of 2 years consecutively just not paying taxes. So if someone had come in the midst, paid, then didn't pay a couple months, but then kept trying to pay, we wouldn't be at this state here. This is over the course of the time. You never paid a dime.
And I'll stop. Has there been a review as to, when you look at, for example, I keep coming back to the $11,000 being owed. Has there been a review as to the story behind $11,000 being owed at all?
I think we can ask Patty, because she does a lot of the work, what are the overarching causes for the delinquency? I think we can do that. I mean, it changes depending on the particular circumstances, whether it's sick. I've talked to Councilor Allen about this several times. Sometimes the property owner actually passes away and there was no formal way of transferring the property over to the next generation of people. We talked about helping people understand one sheet of paper will transfer your asset over to your generations in a will, in a living will. So we've also talked about that. But by the time these are before you, they haven't paid in 2 years. Patty is amazing in trying to contact people and get to them and help them understand that we understand maybe you didn't see the letter multiple times. So you're getting phone calls and the like.
Right. So what I'm hearing is that we can be sympathetic to the stories as to how when people owe these money.
Absolutely. Right. And to the sale, I think it's important for the council to also consider how long has it been for sale? Did they just put it on sale because it's on this tax delinquent list now?
Right.
Or were they trying to sell it all along and having trouble moving the property? And what Vicki says is absolutely true. We have so many people that buy properties. They don't buy it. They don't get an attorney. It should be part of the closing to pay off the taxes, to pay off the water. Many of them, quite frankly, are just transferring them over to somebody else that they know. And so when you come back and find that you have this tax bill, it is past. I called you
Pastor. Okay.
All right.
Counselor Allen is right. It is also the person's due diligence. You're buying property to do this research as well, which is why you get the assistance of an attorney or someone.
What's the percentage of tax trust in terms of interest?
12.
Oh, the interest rate is 12%.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We're planning to bring you some revisions soon.
Counselor, we're talking about a property owner whose post office box is in Janesville. It's probably a rental. I imagine it's a rental. And
it is.
Just my experience with people who own properties outside the city, if they fail to pay taxes and they're renting to people, a lot of times code violations probably not cited because people can't get into the house. Right. I can't imagine what kind of shape that property might be in. I'm just speculating here, but.
And again, if it is occupied by a renter, the land bank does not evict people unless the property is in a condition that people should not be there.
Okay. Thank you. You can pick up where you left off.
Item 35, 1807 Bellevue Ave, District 3 owes approximately $20,000. Item 36, 424 Bishop Ave, District 3 owes approximately $12,000. Item 37, 301 Clover Ridge Drive, District 5 owes approximately $24,000.
Question. You said the person is in there deceased. How long has this person been deceased? Do we know?
I can confirm that information.
And did we give the lawyers any information? Like, did we tell them because they're?
Yeah, the phone number that is listed there is for the lawyer who reached out directly to Patty. So the notes that are indicated there are what the lawyer advised Patty when she spoke with him.
Did she send this to y'all early?
She sent that in an email.
The phone number that we contacted led us to the daughter who directed directed it to the lawyer then reached out to follow up with us.
So they are in the process of trying to.
Can I back up on 38, please? Because as I'm reading the notes.
We didn't get there yet.
Oh, okay. I'm reading too much, okay.
Okay,
It's next, though.
All set on 37?
Yeah.
38, 1431 West Colvin Street, District 3 owes approximately $21,000. Sorry, 39. Excuse me. Item 38, 301 West Colvin Street, District 4 owes approximately $11,000.
And I think the issue that I have with that, as I'm reading your notes from the 18th, is said that he will go back and discuss with his other board members to make a payment. So if you got board members and you can't pay the $10,000, that's a problem for me.
So this particular property, I can tell you that it has been in a previous phase delinquency, and that was the specific reasoning that we got in approximately 2019 when this property.
Okay, tell him I talked to my board members too. We're done.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Okay. I wasn't sure if there was a thing I needed to
It's
follow up
owned
on.
by, it's an LLC, so they got to talk to their board members, but they've had enough time to talk about it.
All right. Item 39, 1431 Colvin Street, $21,000. Item 40, 121 Cortland Place, District 3, $18,000. Item 41, 400 Ellis Street, District 5, $25,000.
He said he thought they seized it 2 years ago.
Thank you. All right. Item 42, 829 Hiawatha Boulevard, District 2, $14,000.
Yes.
Item 43, 109 Higher Ave, we request to withdraw this item as they have redeemed.
Are they up to codes and all the other good stuff? Because that property is usually full of trash and people report them all the time.
They are not up to code. There are currently 3 open code violations there. There was a couple properties from this particular manager that appeared on the most recent agenda, and so I think some of the outreach for that has, at this point, they appear to be caught up enough that they would meet the standard for this particular phase.
Okay.
He's on there.
Open.
Item 44, 164 Jasper Street, District 1, $19,000. Item 45, 211 Kirkpatrick Street, District 2, $19,000. Item 46, 138 Mary Street, District 1, $22,000. Item 47, 104 Merriman Ave, District 2. Again, we request to withdraw that as they have redeemed. Item 48, 909 Onondaga Street, District 2, $8,500. Item 49, 130 Ostrander Ave, District 4, $52,000. Item 50, 216 Rich Street, District 4, $6,500. Item 51, 2580 South Ave, District 3, $8,400. Item 52, 125 West End Drive, District 2, $29,000. And lastly, item 53, 919 Willis Ave. We request to withdraw this one as well. We had originally included it because the water billing address indicated that it was a bank involved property, but based on some correspondence with code enforcement that was updated last week, we believe that it is owner occupied.
Can you go back to, so item 50, So the property manager is no longer managing this property, but the owner lives in Nigeria. So do we know who the new property managers are?
We were not able to identify that information based on the conversation that Patty had.
Okay, and there are people living in the house. Oops, sorry.
That is our understanding, yes.
Okay.
I have a question while we're thank you very much for putting this all together, but as we continue, I see like amount owed, like some vary from 7,000 to all the way up to 50,000. How long typically do we wait? Because stranger taxes, 52,000, like what was that, 20 years?
Part of the reason that particular property is extremely inflated, you will notice that there is 50 code violations that have been open previously that have been closed out. There's 11 that are actively open right now. That owner has an incredibly long legal history with the city, and multiple sets of fines and legal liens have been placed on it that I think have kind of inflated some of those numbers. Some of these other ones that are more along the lines of $11,000, that's roughly 5 years of delinquency. Anything that would be coming forward to you at this point in the process, because of the timing of when we started this phase, all of these properties that are coming forward over the next couple votes are at minimum 5 years delinquent, even though when we first started this back in March of 2020, they were only approximately 2.5, 3 years delinquent on a lot of these. We have now gotten to the point where they have kept accumulating.
5 years. Okay, thank you.
Cindy said, go ahead, take the property. That's the quote from the man in Brooklyn who owned the property.
Said he thought they already took it
So Michelle, what prompted the city to start making the move of handing a property to land bank? Is it the amount, the number of years? When do we start the process of, at least? At what capacity?
2 years. So once the property hits once the taxes hit the point of 8 quarters worth of delinquencies.
8 quarters? Okay. So I could be, my property could be a $1.2 million property that maybe $30,000 a year. So we have to wait 2 years to start doing anything. Is that what the legislature?
Correct.
Okay. Not the amount, okay.
Council, before the land bank, the city used to take possession of those properties, and Councilor Hogan remembers that.
They actually never did.
And actually, true.
They just stayed there and fell apart.
Right. And then when we did do it, they got a company in Illinois to come and look and say, we are gonna take these, and sorry I opened up that wound.
To that end, there's at least 2 to 3 properties that are on this particular list that fall into that category.
We've never got $1 million property.
No.
We're looking forward to it.
Let me ask this question, Pat, you're a land bank. Let me ask this question, because as I'm looking at all of these lists of properties, we got some people in Texas, and one of them said they're in Nigeria. So at this point, the land bank doesn't sell long distance, right? We stay local, right?
We sell,
No, we don't.
yeah,
We sell all
sometimes,
over.
but very rarely. The land bank board always will vote for the local investor. If there's a local bid on the property, that person will get it. And it's very rarely where there's somebody from outside. So you can look at all the agendas for the land.
Okay, because I see a whole lot
The
of,
local person gets it first, but there's a multiple of outside companies out that are buying houses.
That's not true. There's hardly any more than, since I've been on the board, there has hardly been more than 2 bidders. And and all the time, it's the local person who always gets it. A lot of times it's somebody in the neighborhood too.
because it needs to really stay local, because chasing down people to Italy and Rome and all kind of places trying to get our money.
So with this item 53, that is 53,000, you know, you this is probably because you guys are catching up, right? Because it,
Because these were, pre-pandemic delinquent for multiple years then.
okay, multiple years,
We
right,
went through the.
right, okay.
Well, he doesn't owe 53,000. They owe 17.
17,000.
53 is the assessed value.
Assessed value.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm all set with my items. You had a question?
All righty.
If you know, how much would the city owe exactly properties?
Right.
Not just these properties, but the properties, like, is there a total number right now?
I don't have that number in front of me, and it does not look like finance has that easily accessible either. So.
Just wondering if I could get that, we can get that.
Okay, thank you.
You want to date or a fiscal year, how you want it?
Just today.
Today.
That's a good one, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'm awesome.
All righty, thank you. And Counselor Green is going to take for Counselor Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam President. So item 54 and 55 is the radar sign program. I haven't been directly involved in, I don't know what the latest is with this.
I've been involved with that with Counselor Scholes, Counselor Driscoll. Is Corey? Oh, is it you? Okay. So we saw Counselor Scholes. You want to go first?
No.
Our favorite is here.
I'm good.
Right? Okay. So for me, and I really would like in this round, we cannot leave South Ave out. South Ave as the entry point to the city. There's like a flashing light there next to the grave St. Agnes. It's packed. I would like with that flashing light to have a speed reader there. Like that's really would like to have it. Every year I'm requesting the police to bring a mobile radar reader there every year, and I'm actually on the schedule to get that there a couple of times a year. It's a problem there.
So you're talking about
I know there's no school there, but
you're talking about the mobile one that Neil was moving around last
right.
year.
I
Yep.
want a permanent one on the pole. There's a pole there with a flashing light. I want a permanent one on there, and I've been pushing for this for a
So
while.
do we want to hold this item? Because it looks like Neil had the locations
Yeah.
for permanent installation in 6 school zones listed
Right.
in the appendix.
Right.
And so since that doesn't fill your need, are you holding this,
No,
or are you?
I want you to take that back. If
Okay.
this could be incorporated, there's no need to hold it.
Well,
No need to hold it at all.
he said permanently installed in the 6 school zones listed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I know that he was prioritizing school zones.
Right.
We look to increase this program.
Right.
After that unfortunate situation on James Street.
so there is one for South Ave, it says, in the school zone of Elmwood.
To the Elmwood school. But
That is the location.
Focusing around
Yeah.
starting at school zones.
Yeah.
For the protection of the kids.
So does that meet your need or no?
Which- what?
Does that meet your need or no? Okay.
No, it's all the way in the beginning of
So,
the.
Council, sounds like you're not against this idea
I'm
of
not.
school,
I'm
so
not
we're ready to
against
move that
it. I'm not
as a
against
separate thing you want to do
Yeah.
South Ave.
Yeah.
So let's do that.
Put that in as well.
Wait,
Put
wait,
that-
wait. So I can understand what you're saying. You're not saying, are you saying to add what you're requesting in this ordinance here? Or, no, that's not what you're saying?
No, this
Okay,
ordinance
okay,
can go,
good.
but I want that to be part of that conversation.
So-
I'm not gonna hold this ordinance.
Okay, so
over.
understanding as we
Yeah.
move to the next
Yes.
detectors, we want
Yes.
to
And
prioritize.
and what I'm also saying, I don't even want to wait to the next one because I know how long government take to come back.
Well, you find the government though. No, I'm just, what Neil has right here is what we have legislated based on the money, so that, the
School,
priority
yeah.
was school.
Yes.
So,
So I want this, let's go with this one, but I want this to.
You want it
to
on the
what we are
record.
doing.
He wants this one, but he wants y'all to go back and get some more money
Yeah.
ASAP for
so
that other one.
that is my point, that we have to go back
Yeah.
and get some other money to do another round.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And don't forget Kirk and the
Mm.
Send the new. list, send it on.
Uh,
I done told y'all already,
Yeah.
several times.
All right. I mean, it's great. Councilor Green, let's move it. Councilor Choles, you look excited.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Item 56, is that you, or is that engineering?
That's me as
Okay.
well. Well, Neil, but me.
Sure.
So this is a striping project for Lodi Street.
That was a held item.
Yes, yes, I'm good. Bless you.
What was it? It was held?
Yeah, that was a held item too.
Oh, held from previous times, okay. And so there is a grant, a New York State grant, 80% reimbursed for striping and pavement along Lodi. And it's from Butternut to Erie. And JMT will provide the scoping and design services.
Now, and I know out of Comstock with a couple of folks that have been advocating for striping in their neighborhood. And I know there is a conversation in the work with Jeremy, but could you also take that back to Neil to kind of entertain that a little bit in his head as this conversation brewed a little bit?
You want the striping evaluated for Outer Comstock?
Outer Comstock. And we'll have a deeper conversation about it. I just want Neil to start thinking about it while these things are in the making.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Item 57.
Good afternoon, councilors. Mary Robinson, city engineer. This is our TIP project. I think I brought the construction and CI phase to you a couple meetings ago for the pedestrian safety action plan. And this is to amend the agreement with CNS engineers to add the construction inspection phase for a cost of $223,000, which brings their total fee to $500,000. And it is 97.3% federally funded, 2.7 local, 2.7% local.
Questions on this item? Okay.
Thank you.
Item 58.
Good afternoon, Councilors Owen Kearney with City Planning again. The item before you is to authorize cash capital funds for a brownfield property on Erie Boulevard, 2176 Erie Boulevard East. It's on the south side of the road. It's essentially across from the police garage on the south side, large vacant lot. It's been city-owned for years. It's a brownfield property. The city has completed extensive testing and evaluation on the site with the idea that once that's complete, New York State Department of Environmental Conservation will issue a record of decision, and the city may then either make that available for sale or redevelopment, or frankly do a whole host of things with it. We've been working with New York State to complete this project, and they said the Department of Health has identified, New York State Department of Health, some additional testing and evaluation is needed to complete that report. We don't have a whole lot of options other than to complete that work and sort of move through the program. This funding will allow us, the city, to do that by hiring or working with an environmental consulting firm to do that work, submit the reporting and the testing to New York State, and then with the understanding that they would issue a record of decision, and that property, that city-owned property, could then be made available for sale, which is ultimately the goal here, sale and redevelopment. So it's essentially spending these funds to ultimately have it back into productive use.
Owen, I don't have the rezone map memorized, unfortunately, but this is MX2?
This is probably MX3, and I can confirm that. It's a mixed-use district along much of Erie Boulevard. This is adjacent to a neighborhood in the back, but it's a large site. There's been a variety, there is ongoing interest in redeveloping this site from both local and national franchises. There are people that are calling quarterly about this site just because it is so large. It's on a corner, it's on Erie Boulevard. So this work will allow us to make it available for sale.
So I could be wrong, but I think it is either MX2 or it's lower than kind of adjacent blocks. So just maybe something to think about if we own it.
Right.
Like we should think about zoning it in a way that would make it as marketable as possible.
Good point. I'll confirm that, Counselor.
Okay. Other questions on this? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Owen. Item 59.
So Steve can help me if I need it for this one, but this we're just buying for $1 from Greater Syracuse Property Development Corporation, this lot, and it will be used for the Urban Forester Master Plan.
No, we want our 51 cent back.
Yes.
Where is it at exactly? What is it located next to?
Do you know the location well, Steve?
Kimon Jordan, Neighborhood and Business Development. So this lot is at the intersection of Midland and Castle, or MLK. You know where the convenience store is? It's across, yeah, so that big vacant lot that's on the corner.
So not the triangle.
Not the triangle.
One right there.
Yeah,
No, the
on the left of the
triangle.
triangle.
And then, and what do y'all want to put there?
Trees.
No. Well, we can't build on it, like it's a huge lot.
Right.
You said Midland, Midland and Corn where the corner store is?
Yeah, right across the street.
Midland and MLK.
Yeah, I see it now.
Across the street.
Yeah, so our reason behind wanting to put trees there, so first, it's near a convenience store in a high-traffic area, which means that people that visit that store should have access to all the public health benefits that come with planting trees. So lower land surface temperatures, shade, decrease in energy costs. In addition to that, it's also near Jubilee Homes infill housing development on MLK. So we thought the trees would really complement some housing development that's going on. And then it's also near Creek Walk Investments. So we're thinking to plant trees.
Let's try to, who's doing these? Yeah. Can we hold this and discuss a little further about this one? Because I'm not comfortable with that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, well, let's hold that one. Or Councilor Driscoll can hold.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify the way that we would handle this intervention is to bring the lot to a minimum condition, which is basically simple grass and trees, split rail fence, so that the space is defined so that trash doesn't get caught on the fence, and we would address those often wild growing borderline trees become a nuisance. They grow out of control, and who owns it, right? So the idea is to create corners on that lot and to just improve the visual condition, because right now it's not so great. And they proposed that to me because it wasn't good for their assessment it wasn't ideal for other development.
Because we have those, we already have the three, so you'll have the one right on Midland and Bellevue that Jubilee has, their farm. And then you have the other one literally right up the block.
Ms. Hayden.
Right there that Petrona and TNT, they kind of, take care of. And then you'll have that one right there. I don't know,
One way to think about it is if you look at the canopy distribution across the neighborhoods, like Westcott, Sedgwick has 30%, Westcott has 40%, Southwest and Southeast have low 20%. And one of the reasons that the other neighborhoods have more canopy is they have more contiguous green space. And you'll never get it, you'll never get that canopy without some pockets like that.
Can we get a visualization of what it would look like, and then who would be responsible for cleaning it and stuff? Who would actually go physically clean, pick up the trash and all that?
Yeah, we can put that together, and there's a couple other specifics that we'll follow up with you on in terms of kind of site layout that make the development piece of it kind of challenging.
Okay.
Because on that piece of property, though, if you cross the street, over there is a whole bunch of green space, because the county took it and set that sewage thing on top of it. And there's a ton of trees over that side.
Yeah, then the little triangle that's right across the street from it, they tried to do something with it a couple years ago, but it looks a mess, when you ride past it. And it's on, the people that live there or the community to take care of it, but they don't. So you're going to have a mess across from a mess.
The lines where the floodplain kind of are overlapping here, they're very close to where all of these properties are. So that's why it's very, from kind of a layout perspective, if you're walking through that area, it seems very patchworky and it seems like there's a lot of green space there. Also, there is some very nearby development that we are able to do, but that's because that infill development is right outside of the boundary of the floodplain. So.
Yeah, I need to see.
Yeah, we'll get you a visual.
Okay.
Speaking, and speaking of properties that vacant lots and vacant spaces, 1350 South Avenue. It's an empty lot, as overgrown vegetation there. Trash is everywhere. I don't know if that's something you could look at, and maybe, I don't know if it's worth planting more trees there, or, you know, I don't know if the city owned that, or.
Yeah, I can check with Brian Eisenberg, he'll know.
Okay, that's just, it's too much trash down there. I don't know if your team can go out there and take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Items 60 and 61 are ceiling replacement.
Good afternoon again. Yes, this is related to the water leak that we had in January in budget and assessment and the iLab. So we're requesting to bond authorization and project authorization for ceiling improvements, repairs not to exceed $300,000. The insurance is going to pay for it, but there is a $100,000 deductible, so we'll have to front the money and then get reimbursed everything but the first $100,000.
No Marcia Shelley? No, just playing.
You know, President,
No Marchicelli.
I asked the city engineer, who is this Marchicelli guy?
And I didn't know.
Was some state senator
Yep.
from the 19th century, and nobody knows.
But he giving us money.
He's giving us money.
Joe Barry knew who it was.
That's what
He
matters.
saved us, I think, right, Joe? Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
His name lives on.
Other questions on these items? Okay.
Thank you.
And then 62 and 63 are the municipal sidewalk program.
That's correct. There is a public hearing, and so Neil did mention, you know, that might be the best time to field those questions on this program. I can try and answer some, but.
Either here or it should either be.
Oh, that's right. Joe was involved.
It probably should either be here or in a committee meeting or something, because the public hearing, we know it's going to be at 1 o'clock, so.
Right, the public hearing is more
at
for the
budget,
public
at the-
itself.
Yeah, so I think there was
the
a
budget.
misunderstanding. I had spoken to Neil, and one thought was we could get into it more deeply at the DPW budget meeting this coming Friday.
Sure. Yep.
Just because of the time involved.
Okay.
But essentially, this is, as we enter the second year of the program, as you know, the first year was funded by a bond. This will be the first year where the special assessment district is part of the city budget, and the fees associated with that district will be, upon enactment of the budget, imposed. And the public hearing allows the public, because an extra fee will be imposed, to show up and voice any concerns they might have about the program.
Counselor, there is a list, exhibit.
In the books, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right, thank you, Madam President.
All righty, with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor? Have a great day.